I thought I understood Bangkok after 30 years of visiting. I thought I knew the games, the scams, the warnings. But at 62, broke and alone in a hospital bed, I realize I knew nothing. They didn't just take my money. They took everything I thought I knew about myself. If you like our videos, please subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. I'd been coming to Bangkok for 30 years, since 1994, when I was 32 and thought I owned the world. Back then, Nana Plaza was different. Rougher, maybe, but honest in its dishonesty. You knew what you were getting into. Now, at 62, I sat at the same bar stool I'd claimed for decades, watching the neon lights flicker across faces I didn't recognize anymore. The old girls had moved on, married, retired, disappeared. These new ones were different, sharper. They moved in packs. "You, Frank?" she asked, sliding onto the stool beside me. I turned. Late 20s. Beautiful in that dangerous way that made smart men stupid. Short black hair, designer clothes that didn't match the usual bar girl uniform. Depends who's asking. "Ploy," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I heard about you from Nim. She said you were generous." Nim. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. Last I heard, she'd opened a restaurant in Eisen with money I'd helped her save. Good for her. Nim exaggerates, I said. But I was already signaling the bartender. That's how it started. Not with lies or promises. Just a conversation between two adults who understood the rules. Or so I thought. The drink came. Then another. Ploy wasn't checking her phone every 5 minutes like the others. She wasn't asking for lady drinks or making small talk about her village. She was listening, really listening. "You've been coming here a long time," she said. It wasn't a question. "Long enough to know better," I said. "But here I am. Here you are." She smiled, and something in my chest loosened, something I hadn't felt in years. "Tell me about Frank," she said. "What's worth knowing?" I told her about my engineering background, my quiet retirement in Hua Hin, my routine visits to Bangkok. I didn't mention the divorce, the estranged kids, the slowly shrinking bank account that made each trip feel more desperate than the last. But somehow, she seemed to understand all of that anyway. "You live alone?" she asked. "By choice," I said automatically. She nodded like she believed me. Ploy wasn't like the others. She didn't ask for drinks every 5 minutes or check her phone constantly. She listened when I talked about my engineering background. My divorce 15 years ago, my quiet retirement in Hua Hin. "You live alone?" she asked on our 3rd night together. "By choice," I said. "My ex-wife got the house in Denver. Kids sided with her. Happens." "That's sad," she said. But not in the practiced way bar girls usually delivered sympathy. This felt different. Over the next week, I noticed things. Ploy always arrived with 2 or 3 other girls, but they'd drift away once we started talking. They moved like a unit, these women. Professional. But professional what? "Your friends," I said one night, nodding toward the group at the corner table. "They're not working here." "Are they?" Ploy smiled. "Working is working, Frank. Some girls dance. Some girls talk. Some girls solve problems." "What kind of problems?" "Lonely problems. Money problems. Visa problems." She traced the rim of her glass. "Tourist problems." I should have walked away then. 30 years of Bangkok should have taught me to recognize the setup, but Ploy made me feel like I was 32 again, like I still had something to offer besides my credit card. "I don't have problems," I said. "Everyone has problems, Frank. The smart ones just find the right solutions." That night, she came back to my hotel for the first time. "Not for money," she refused when I offered. "Let's see if we're compatible first," she said. Compatible. Like we were testing software instead of playing the oldest game in the world. I lay awake afterward, listening to her breathe. wondering when I'd started needing someone so badly that I'd mistake professional interest for genuine affection. But in the morning, when she made coffee using the hotel's instant packets and complained about the weak air conditioning, it felt real enough. 2 weeks in, Ploy started talking about her business ventures. Nothing dramatic, just casual mentions of opportunities, investments, the changing face of Bangkok tourism. "Ladyboys make more money than regular girls now," she said one morning, lying naked in my hotel bed. "Tourists prefer them. More exotic, more open-minded." "That's not exactly news," I said. "But the business side is news. The management side." She sat up, suddenly animated. "Most Cathay work alone. No protection. No organization. They get cheated by customers, by bars, by everyone. So smart investors are organizing them, creating what you call it agencies, safe houses, legal protection. It's the future." Frank. I listened because I loved watching her talk about business. She was smart in ways that had nothing to do with her looks. It reminded me of my ex-wife before everything went wrong. "My cousin Jin runs one of the biggest operations in Pattaya," Ploy continued. "She's looking for foreign partners, silent partners, people who understand international business. Red flag number 1, foreign investment in Thai agencies. Red flag number 2, the way she watched my face when she said it. Red flag number 3. I ignored both of them. "How much money are we talking about?" I asked. "Start small. Maybe 50,000 baht. See how it goes." 50,000 baht. About $1,500. Pocket change for what I'd spent in bars over 3 decades. What kind of return? Jin's partners make 20% monthly. Sometimes more during high season. 20% monthly. In the real world, that was impossible. In Thailand with the right connections, maybe it wasn't. "I'd need to meet this cousin," I said. Ploy smiled like she'd won something. "Of course. She's coming to Bangkok next week." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, calculator running in my head. My retirement fund wasn't huge. The divorce had taken half, and 15 years of modest living had stretched the rest. But if Ploy was right, if this opportunity was real, I could stop being just another old farang throwing money at young women. I could be a partner, an investor, someone who mattered. The next morning, I transferred 50,000 baht to the account Ploy provided. "This is just the beginning," she said, kissing me with what felt like genuine affection. "You'll see." Jin arrived on a Tuesday. Tall, elegant, with the kind of poise that comes from money and power. She spoke perfect English with a slight British accent. International school, probably. "Frank," she said, shaking my hand in the lobby of the Intercontinental. "Ploy tells me you're interested in our work." "I'm interested in legitimate business opportunities," I said carefully. Jin laughed. "Of course, let me show you what we do." The restaurant she chose was expensive, quiet, and filled with the kind of people who made decisions that affected other people's lives. Jin ordered for the table in rapid Thai, then switched back to English. "The sex industry in Thailand is changing," she said. "Customers want more than just transactions. They want experiences, stories. They want to feel special. And ladyboys provide that? The right ladyboys, properly managed, can make a foreign man feel like a king, like he's discovered something unique, something his friends back home could never understand." She showed me photos on her phone. Professional headshots of beautiful Cathay, dressed for upscale venues. Not street workers or go-go dancers. These looked like models. "We provide security, medical care, language training, financial planning. Our girls, our partners, are independent contractors with full support systems." It sounded almost legitimate. Too legitimate. "What about the customers? How do you find them?" They find us. Social media, referrals, word of mouth. Rich tourists want curated experiences. We provide curation. And my investment goes into expansion. New talent, better facilities, international marketing. Bangkok is just the beginning. We're looking at Phuket, Samui, eventually Vietnam and Cambodia. The numbers she showed me were impressive. Revenue streams, profit margins, growth projections. It looked like a real business plan. I'll need to see the operation, I said. Tomorrow night. Ploy will bring you to one of our networking events. After Jin left, I walked back to my hotel with my head spinning. This wasn't some bar girl scam. This was organized, professional, international. If I was getting in on the ground floor. How did it go? Ploy asked when I returned. She's impressive. Very professional. Jin went to university in London. Business degree. She understands both worlds. Thai and Farang. That night, I transferred another 100,000 baht, then another 50 the next morning. The amounts were getting serious, but so was the opportunity. You're really doing this, I said to myself in the bathroom mirror. You're really fucking doing this. My reflection looked older than I felt, grayer, more tired, but also more excited than I'd been in years. The networking event was in a private club near Asok. High-end, members only, the kind of place that didn't advertise its existence. Ploy arrived in a black dress that probably cost more than most bar girls made in a month. Ready to see how the business really works? She asked. The club was smaller than I expected. Maybe 30 people, split between well-dressed Kathoi and older foreign men like myself. The atmosphere was cocktail party meets business conference, with an undercurrent of something I couldn't identify. Frank. Meet the team, Ploy said, leading me to a corner where 5 of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen were holding court with a group of Western men. But as I got closer, I realized my mistake. These weren't women. They were ladyboys, and they were working these men with surgical precision. This is David, Ploy said, introducing me to a silver-haired Australian who looked like he'd stepped out of a retirement brochure. He's been with us for 6 months. David shook my hand with the enthusiasm of someone describing a religious experience. Best investment I ever made, mate. These girls are artists. Artists? Each one is paired with specific clients. Long-term relationships. We're not talking about quick transactions. We're talking about ongoing arrangement. Monthly fees, travel expenses, lifestyle support. The Kathoi beside him, stunning, maybe 25, perfect makeup, smiled and squeezed his arm. David takes good care of me, she said in accented English. We're very happy together. How much do these arrangements cost? I asked. Depends on the level of service, David said. I pay about $3,000 a month, but Kim is exclusive to me. She doesn't work with anyone else. $3,000. Monthly. For a girlfriend experience with someone who was performing a role. The beauty of the system, Jin appeared beside us, is that everyone wins. Our partners make steady income with security and respect. Clients get consistency and genuine affection. We handle the business side. What business side? Contracts, scheduling, conflict resolution, medical care, visa arrangements for international travel. She handed me a tablet showing a professional presentation, revenue projections, client testimonials, expansion plans. It looked like a Fortune 500 company's investor pitch. But something was wrong. The math didn't add up. If clients were paying $3,000 monthly and there were dozens of clients, where was my 20% return coming from? The investment returns, I said carefully. How do they work? Jin's smile never wavered. Early investors get preferred dividends from new client acquisition fees. As we expand, your initial investment multiplies. A pyramid scheme? A growth model, like any successful business. I looked around the room with new eyes. The foreign men weren't investors, they were customers. High-paying, long-term customers who thought they were in relationships, and the Kathaway weren't employees. They were products. Beautiful, sophisticated products. "Where do I fit in this?" I asked. "You're our marketing consultant," Ploy said, taking my arm. "You understand Western men, what they want, how they think. You help us refine the experience. And my money goes into the operational fund, recruiting, training, facilities." I felt sick. Not because of what they were doing. The sex industry was the sex industry. But because of what I was funding. This wasn't just prostitution. It was emotional manipulation on an industrial scale. "I need some air," I said. Outside, I called my bank in Thailand. My account balance had dropped by 300,000 baht in 2 weeks, about $9,000. Money I'd given them voluntarily, but money that was now funding something I didn't understand and couldn't control. When I came back inside, Ploy was waiting. "Everything okay?" "I think I'm in over my head." Everyone feels that way at first. Jin felt that way. I felt that way. But look at us now. She gestured around the room, at the successful-looking operation, the happy customers, the professional atmosphere. "This is the future, Frank. You can be part of it, or you can go back to being just another lonely tourist throwing money away in go-go bars." The choice, when she put it that way, seemed obvious. But as I watched David and his girlfriend across the room, him looking at her with genuine affection, her checking her phone while smiling, I realized I'd already made my choice 2 weeks ago. I just hadn't understood what I was choosing. The next month blurred together. I was no longer a tourist in Bangkok. I was part of something. Ploy introduced me to clients, asked my opinion on new recruits, included me in planning meetings that felt increasingly like criminal conspiracies. "We need someone in Phuket," Jin said during one of our weekly dinners. "Someone who understands the international market. I could relocate," I heard myself saying. "My visa situation is flexible." That would require a larger investment, operational capital for a new territory. How much? 500,000 baht to start, maybe more depending on the setup costs. 500,000, $15,000, half of what remained in my Thai bank account. I'd need to see the business plan. Of course. But the business plan never materialized. Instead, Ploy started bringing me to recruitment meetings. Young Kathaway from the provinces, some barely 18, looking for work in Bangkok. "This is Frank," she'd say. "He's our Western consultant. He helps us understand what clients want." These girls, and they were girls, regardless of their gender identity, looked at me with a mixture of hope and calculation. They needed work, money, security. The operation provided all three, plus medical care, language lessons, and professional development. It should have felt like social work. Instead, it felt like slave trading. "Tell her what foreign men find attractive," Ploy would say during these interviews. And I would. God help me. I would sit there and evaluate human beings like livestock, offering opinions on makeup, clothing, behavior modifications that would make them more appealing to lonely Western men. "Speak softer," I'd suggest. "Smile more. Let him feel like a protector." The girls would nod and take notes. They were learning to be what men like me wanted them to be. After one particularly brutal session, a 19-year-old from Korat who reminded me of my daughter, I confronted Ploy. "This feels wrong." "What feels wrong?" "All of it. The recruiting, the training, the manufacturing of personalities." "Frank, we're providing opportunities. These girls come from villages where they face discrimination, violence, poverty. We give them safety and income. By turning them into emotional prostitutes. By giving them agency over their own sexuality and economic power. Would you rather they work the streets?" The logic was sound, but it felt hollow. These weren't empowered sex workers making autonomous choices. They were products being optimized for market demands. "I want to reduce my involvement," I said. "That's not how investments work. You're in or you're out." "Then maybe I'm out." Ploy's expression changed. The warmth I'd grown accustomed to disappeared, replaced by something cold and professional. "Jin won't like that. She's been counting on your Phuket expansion support. Jin will survive." "Will you?" The question hung in the air like a threat. Not physical violence. They were too sophisticated for that. But financial violence. Social violence. The kind of destruction that happened to people who crossed organized operations. "What do you mean?" "You know what our business is, Frank. You've seen the clients, met the girls, participated in the recruitment. You're not just an investor anymore. You're an accomplice." I felt the walls closing in. She was right. I'd crossed lines I hadn't even known existed. I'd helped recruit vulnerable young people into a system that exploited their desperation. "I just gave you money." "You gave us money, yes. But you also gave us legitimacy, a Western face, Western business advice, Western approval of our methods. Your involvement validates everything we do." That night, I sat in my hotel room with a bottle of Thai whiskey and a calculator, trying to figure out how much money I'd given them. The number was staggering. Nearly 800,000 baht over 6 weeks, $24,000. But the money wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that I'd become something I didn't recognize. A man who evaluated human beings for their commercial potential. A man who helped design systems of exploitation and called it business. I'd wanted to matter, to be more than just another old Farang with a credit card. Mission accomplished. Jin called the meeting for a Friday night. Private dining room at a hotel I'd never heard of, somewhere in the maze of streets behind Nana Plaza. I arrived expecting another pitch, another request for funding. Instead, I found Jin, Ploy, and 3 men I'd never seen before. Thai men in expensive suits who radiated the kind of quiet authority that comes from controlling things that matter. "Frank, sit down," Jin said. Her tone was different. Less friendly, more businesslike. "What's this about?" "We have a problem. The operation is expanding faster than anticipated. We need additional capital, but more importantly, we need operational security." One of the men I didn't recognize leaned forward. "You know our business, Mr. Frank. You know our clients, our girls, our methods. This knowledge makes you valuable, but it also makes you dangerous." "Dangerous? How?" "If you were to leave Bangkok, return to America, and decide to share your experiences, it could create complications." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you threatening me?" "We're offering you a partnership," Jin said smoothly. "Full partnership, equal stake in the Phuket expansion, plus ongoing revenue from Bangkok operations. In exchange for permanent relocation to Thailand, full commitment to the business, and a significant capital investment to secure your position." The man across from me slid a document across the table. A contract, in Thai and English, outlining terms that made my blood freeze. 2 million baht, he said. About $60,000. This gives you 20% ownership of all operations, plus management responsibilities for international client acquisition. "And if I don't sign?" The silence stretched long enough to answer the question. "Frank," Ploy said, reaching across the table to touch my hand, "we care about you. We want you to be part of our success. But business is business." I looked at the contract. 2 million baht, more money than I had left in Thailand, and close to everything I had in the world. But the alternative seemed to be disappearing into the Bangkok night, with nothing to show for 6 weeks of increasingly bad decisions. "I need time to think." "Of course. But we need an answer by Monday. The Phuket opportunity won't wait." Walking back to my hotel, I felt like a man drowning in slow motion. Every choice I'd made had led to a worse choice. Every attempt to be smart had made me more stupid. I called my bank. My Thai account had a balance of 1.2 million baht. My American account had about $40,000. Combined, I could make the payment and become a full partner in something I now understood was a criminal enterprise. Or I could refuse and face consequences I couldn't imagine. That weekend, I didn't leave my hotel room. I ordered room service, drank too much, and tried to understand how I'd gotten here. 6 weeks ago, I'd been a retired engineer with a modest pension and a simple life in Hua Hin. Now I was facing a choice between bankruptcy and criminality. On Sunday night, Ploy came to my room. "Have you decided? I don't have 2 million baht. You have most of it. We can arrange the rest. A loan against your future earnings. And if the business fails, it won't fail. We have too much invested to let it fail." She sat on the bed beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her body. For a moment, she was the woman I'd fallen for 6 weeks ago, beautiful, intelligent, caring. "Frank, I need you to understand something. This was never just business for me. I care about you, but I also have responsibilities to Jin, to the other girls, to the clients who depend on us." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if you walk away now, you're not just walking away from the business. You're walking away from me." The ultimatum, when it came, was delivered with such gentleness that it took me a moment to recognize it as extortion. "And if I stay? If you stay, we build something together. A real partnership, a real relationship, a real future." I signed the contract at midnight on Sunday, transferred 1.2 million baht immediately, with the remainder financed against future profits that would never come. "Welcome to the family," Jin said when I delivered the signed documents Monday morning. Family. That's what this was, I realized. A criminal family that absorbed its victims so completely they became complicit in their own destruction. I was no longer a customer, an investor, or even a mark. I was family. The Phuket expansion was a disaster from day one. The location Jin had scouted didn't exist. The permits she'd arranged were forgeries. The local contacts who were supposed to facilitate operations were either fictional or had never heard of our organization. Growing pains, Jin explained during our crisis meeting in Bangkok. These things take time to develop. But I was starting to understand that time was a luxury I'd purchased with money I'd never see again. My 2 million baht had vanished into operational expenses that produced no operations, expansion costs for expansion that wasn't happening, and administrative fees for administration that seemed to consist entirely of moving my money between accounts I couldn't access. "I want financial statements," I said. "Detailed breakdowns of where the money is going." "Of course. Ploy handles our accounting. She'll prepare everything for you." Ploy handled accounting the same way she handled everything else, with professional-looking documents that didn't survive careful examination, revenue projections that assumed unlimited growth, expense reports that listed costs without receipts, client lists that included people I'd never met and numbers I couldn't verify. "This doesn't make sense," I told her one afternoon in my hotel room. "We're showing profit, but I haven't seen any return on investment." "The profits are being reinvested. That's what growth companies do." "What if I want to cash out?" "Cash out?" She looked genuinely surprised. "Frank, we just signed a partnership agreement. You can't cash out. You're committed." Committed, like a mental patient or a criminal. Both descriptions felt accurate. That's when I started noticing things. My hotel bills were being paid directly by the company, but I hadn't authorized that arrangement. My visa extensions were being handled by the organization's lawyer, but I'd never met this lawyer. My mail was being forwarded to an address I'd never provided. I was being managed, isolated, controlled. "I want to visit my place in Hua Hin," I announced one morning. "Why?" Ploy asked. "Because it's my home. Because I need some space to think." "Of course." I'll come with you. I'd prefer to go alone. Her expression hardened. That's not a good idea. You're not familiar with the security situation outside Bangkok. Security situation? There have been incidents. Foreigners being targeted for their involvement in certain businesses. It's better if you stay close to the organization's protection. Protection? From what? From whom? Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying you're valuable. Valuable people need protection. That night, I tried to book a train ticket to Hua Hin, online. My credit card was declined. I called the bank. My account had been frozen pending investigation of suspicious international transfers. Suspicious transfers? Large amounts to unlicensed financial services companies. It's triggered automatic security protocols. My Thai account was similarly restricted, available for daily expenses, but major transactions required additional authorization. Authorization from whom? From the co-account holder, the bank representative explained. What co-account holder? Miss Ploy Jataraporn. She was added as a signatory for your business partnership documentation. I hung up and stared at the phone. Ploy had access to my money. Jin controlled my visa. The organization was paying my bills and managing my life. I wasn't a partner. I was a prisoner with an expense account. Over the next few days, I tested the boundaries of my captivity. Every attempt to act independently was met with gentle but firm redirection. Want to move hotels? This one has better security. Want to visit friends? They might not understand your business arrangements. Want to travel? Let's make sure your documentation is in order first. The documentation was never in order. There was always another form, another signature, another delay. I want out, I told Jin during what I insisted would be our final meeting. Out of what? All of it. The partnership, the business, the arrangement. I want my money back, and I want to go home. Jin smiled with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a slow child. Frank, that's not how partnerships work. You can't just withdraw your investment because you're having second thoughts. I can, if the partnership is fraudulent. Are you accusing us of fraud? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Because accusing them of fraud would require admitting that I'd been defrauded, and being defrauded would require explaining my involvement in their operations to authorities who might not distinguish between victim and accomplice. I just want my life back. Your life is here now. With us. With Ploy. This is what you chose. That night, alone in the hotel room that was both my accommodation and my cell, I tried to calculate my total losses. The number was staggering, nearly 3 million baht, or about $90,000, more than half of my life savings, gone in 10 weeks. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was understanding how completely I'd been outmaneuvered by people who understood exactly what I wanted and how to use those wants against me. I'd wanted to matter. They'd made me complicit. I'd wanted to belong. They'd made me dependent. I'd wanted to be special. They'd made me vulnerable. I'd gotten everything I'd asked for and lost everything I'd valued. The chest pains started on a Wednesday morning, sharp, shooting sensations that made me grab the edge of the hotel bathroom sink and gasp for breath. Stress, I told myself. Just stress. By Thursday, I couldn't ignore them anymore. The pain radiated down my left arm, made my vision blur, left me sweating and nauseous. I called the front desk. I need to go to a hospital. Of course, sir. Should we contact Miss Ploy? Even the hotel staff knew to call Ploy before calling a doctor. The depth of my managed existence was complete. Just call an ambulance. Bumrungrad Hospital was the kind of place where rich foreigners went to die comfortably. Private rooms, English-speaking doctors, bills that would bankrupt a normal person but seemed reasonable to someone who'd already lost $90,000 to a Ladyboy gang. Heart attack, the cardiologist explained after running tests I couldn't pronounce. Minor, but significant. You'll need surgery, followed by intensive recovery. How much? With your insurance, let me check your coverage. I didn't have insurance that would cover major medical procedures in Thailand. My American policy had basic international emergency coverage. Everything else would be out of pocket. Approximately 800,000 baht, the doctor said, for the surgery, hospital stay, and immediate recovery period. 800,000 baht, $24,000. Money I no longer had access to. I need to make some calls. Ploy arrived within an hour, looking concerned and beautiful and completely in control. Behind her came Jin, wearing the expression of someone calculating costs and benefits in real time. "Frank, darling, what happened?" Ploy sat beside my hospital bed, taking my hand with what felt like genuine affection. "Heart attack. They want to operate." "Of course. Whatever you need." "It's expensive. I'll need to access my accounts." Jin stepped forward. "How expensive?" 800,000 baht. A look passed between them that I was probably supposed to miss. Jin pulled out her phone and stepped into the hallway. Ploy squeezed my hand. "Don't worry about money. We take care of family." Family. The word that had trapped me was now supposed to save me. Jin returned after 10 minutes of hushed conversation. "We've spoken with the billing department. The organization will cover your medical expenses as part of our partnership agreement." "What partnership agreement covers medical care?" Dash, 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 2, dash, 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 2, esh. The agreement you signed included comprehensive member benefits. This qualifies. I was too tired and scared to argue. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. But that night, alone with my IV drip and monitoring equipment, I had time to think clearly for the first time in weeks. The organization was paying for my medical care. They controlled my visa, my bank accounts, my living arrangements, and now my health care. When I got out of this hospital, I would owe them everything. My medical debt would be added to my existing financial obligations, creating a level of dependency that would make leaving impossible. This wasn't generosity. This was the final lock on my cage. The surgery went well. "Triple bypass," the doctors said. I'd live, but recovery would take months. Months of expensive medical care, specialized medications, and supervised rehabilitation. "How much will this all cost?" I asked the discharge planner. "For someone in your condition, with ongoing cardiac care requirements, probably 2 to 3 million baht over the next year." 2 to 3 million baht. Everything I had left in the world, plus money I'd never have. "But don't worry," the planner continued. "Your benefactor has approved extended care authorization. Very generous organization." Benefactor, like I was a charity case instead of someone who'd been systematically robbed. Ploy visited every day during my 2-week hospital stay. She brought flowers, magazines, and updates on the business that was supposedly still mine. "The Phuket situation is resolved," she said one afternoon. "Jin found new contacts, better locations, very promising." "With what money?" Your medical expenses created some cash flow challenges, so we had to liquidate some assets. Temporary setback." My assets, I realized. Whatever remained of my investment was being used to pay for the medical care they were providing. A perfect closed loop. They'd take my money to pay for the care I needed because of the stress they'd caused, creating debt that would justify taking whatever money remained. "I want to see financial statements," I said. "Of course. When you're feeling better." "I want to see them now." "Frank, you just had major surgery. Focus on healing. Business can wait." But business couldn't wait, because business was the reason I was here. Business was the reason my chest felt like someone had driven a truck through it. Business was the reason I'd probably die in Thailand instead of returning to the retirement I'd planned in America. "What happens if I don't recover?" "Oh," I asked. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." "But what happens to my share of the business if I die?" "Why would you ask something like that?" "Because I want to know what you've set up here. I want to know if my death would be convenient for the organization." Ploy's expression changed. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating that I'd seen glimpses of before but never fully recognized. Your death wouldn't be convenient for anyone, Frank. But if something happened, your partnership shares would revert to the organization. That's standard business practice. And my debts would be forgiven. We're not monsters. No, they weren't monsters. They were something worse. They were efficient. My death would eliminate a liability and consolidate an asset. Clean, profitable, legal. I want to change my will, I said. That's not necessary. Your partnership agreement covers everything. I want to leave something to my daughter. Frank, you haven't spoken to your daughter in years. Why complicate things now? Because I was finally understanding what I'd become. A man so desperate for connection that I'd given everything to people who saw me as a renewable resource. A man so afraid of being alone that I'd chosen a kind of slavery disguised as partnership. I want to call my daughter. Of course, when you're feeling stronger. But I called her that night, when Ploy had gone home and the nurses were busy with other patients. Sarah answered on the third ring. Dad? I hadn't heard her voice in 3 years. She sounded older, tired, like someone who'd given up expecting good news from family phone calls. Hi, sweetheart. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm in a hospital in Bangkok. I had a heart attack. Silence. Then, Jesus, Dad. Are you going to be okay? I think so. Maybe. I don't know. Do you need me to come? I can get time off work. Get a flight. Number, don't come here. It's not. It's not safe. What do you mean not safe? How do you explain to your estranged daughter that you've been systematically destroyed by criminals who convinced you they were your family? How do you admit that your need for love made you complicit in something that might get you killed? I made some bad decisions. Got involved with some bad people. I'm trying to figure out how to get out. Dad. What kind of bad people? The kind that don't let you leave. Another silence. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was steady, professional. She'd inherited my engineering brain, my ability to solve problems by breaking them into manageable pieces. What do you need? I need someone to know where I am. What happened to me? In case. In case what? In case I don't make it home. I gave her the name of my hotel, the hospital, Jin's organization. I told her about the money, the partnership agreement, the medical debt. I told her everything except how stupid I'd been, how desperately I'd wanted to matter to someone. Dad, this sounds like human trafficking. I know. You need to contact the embassy, or the Thai police, or someone. I can't. I'm too involved. I help them recruit people. I gave them advice on how to manipulate customers. If I report them, I report myself, but if you don't report them, I die in debt to criminals who own my visa, my bank accounts, and my medical care. Sarah was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was gentle in a way that reminded me of her mother during the good years, before everything fell apart. Dad, I'm going to help you, but I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? Yes. First, don't sign anything else. No matter what they tell you, no matter how urgent they make it sound, don't sign anything. Okay. Second, start documenting everything. Names, dates, money transfers, conversations. Write it down like you're building a case. Because I am building a case? Because you're building an exit strategy. And Dad? Yeah? I love you. We're going to figure this out. After I hung up, I lay in the dark hospital room listening to the machines monitoring my broken heart and thinking about the difference between the family that had trapped me and the family I'd abandoned. Ploy had made me feel wanted, but Sarah made me feel valued. Jin had made me feel important, but Sarah made me feel necessary. The organization had made me feel like I belonged, but Sarah made me feel like I was worth saving. The next morning, When Ploy arrived with flowers and false concern, I was ready. "I want to see those financial statements now," I said. "Frank, you're still recovering." "I'm recovering from a lot of things. But I'm not stupid anymore." The financial statements Ploy finally produced were works of fiction. Creative accounting that would have impressed Arthur Anderson. My 3 million baht investment had been transformed into operational expenses, administrative fees, and something called partnership optimization costs. According to their records, I owed the organization 1.2 million baht for medical expenses, visa processing, and accommodation charges. My equity stake had been diluted to less than 5% due to performance adjustments and market corrections. On paper, I was broke and in debt to the people who'd bankrupted me. "This is impressive," I told Jin during what I'd decided would be our final meeting. "Really creative work. I don't understand. You've managed to steal everything I own while making it look like I owe you money. That takes talent." Jin's expression didn't change. "Frank, I think your medication is affecting your judgment. These are standard business documents." "Standard for what business? Human trafficking? Extortion? Elder abuse? Those are very serious accusations." "Yes, they are." I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table between us. The recording app was running, had been running since I'd entered the restaurant. "Now, let's talk about how this is going to end." For the first time since I'd met her, Jin looked uncertain. "Frank, what are you doing?" "I'm documenting our conversation for my daughter. She's a lawyer, by the way. Specializes in international financial crimes. Amazing what you learn about your children when you finally call them." This was only partially true. Sarah was an accountant, not a lawyer, but she'd connected me with a lawyer, a Thai-American attorney in Bangkok, who specialized in exactly the kind of mess I'd created. "You're making a mistake," Jin said carefully. "I've made a lot of mistakes, but calling my daughter wasn't one of them. Over the past week, while pretending to recover quietly in my hospital bed, I'd been busy. I'd documented every transaction, every meeting, every promise that had been broken. I'd photographed the recruitment sessions, recorded conversations with clients, copied financial documents that Ploy had left accessible on her laptop. Most importantly, I'd contacted 3 other foreign partners who'd been through similar experiences. Men who'd lost everything but been too ashamed to report it. Men who'd agreed to testify if someone else was brave enough to go first. "What do you want?" Jin asked. "I want to go home." "You can go home anytime you want. I want to go home with my passport, my remaining money, and a signed release from all partnership obligations." "And in exchange?" "In exchange, I don't turn this recording and 3 boxes of documentation over to the tourist police, the Economic Crime Division, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit." Jin was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different. Less polished, more pragmatic. "How much money do you think you have left?" "According to my actual bank records, about 400,000 baht. Plus my pension when I get back to the States." "We could settle this quietly. You keep the 400,000, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and everyone moves on." "What about my medical debt? Written off as a business loss. And the partnership agreement?" "Dissolved due to your health concerns." I thought about it. 400,000 baht was about $12,000, enough for a plane ticket home and a few months of living expenses while I figured out how to rebuild my life. It wasn't the 3 million baht I'd started with, but it was better than dying in debt to criminals. I want it in writing. Legal documents, signed witnesses, complete release. Of course. And I want Ploy here when we sign it. Why? Because I want to say goodbye properly. Ploy arrived an hour later, looking nervous and beautiful and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. When Jin explained the settlement, her expression went through a range of emotions I'd never seen before: surprise, anger, disappointment, And finally, something that might have been respect. You figured it out, she said simply. Eventually. I'm sorry it had to end this way. Are you? Really? She thought about it. Yes and no. You're a good man, Frank. But you were also an easy mark. And this is what we do. Destroy good men, survive. In a world that doesn't give women like us many options, it was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. And it hurt more than all the lies combined, because it made her human instead of just a criminal. What will you do now? I asked. Find another good man who needs to feel special. And Jin? Jin will expand into Pattaya. Maybe Phuket eventually. The business model works too well to stop. The settlement documents were signed at 4 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon in a lawyer's office that smelled like old cigarettes and broken dreams. I walked out with a passport, a bank transfer confirmation, and a non-disclosure agreement that legally prevented me from discussing the specifics of what had happened. But it didn't prevent me from warning people. It didn't prevent me from sharing general lessons about trust, loneliness, and the price of needing to belong. 3 days later, I was on a plane to Los Angeles, staring out the window at the Thailand coastline disappearing below. Somewhere down there, the organization was probably already recruiting my replacement. Another retired Western man with money to lose and needs that could be exploited. The flight attendant asked if I wanted a drink. Water, I said. Just water. I was done with anything that promised more than it could deliver. 6 months later, I'm writing this from a small apartment in San Diego, living on Social Security and the remains of my Thai bank account. I see a therapist twice a week. I talk to Sarah every Sunday. I volunteer at a senior center, helping other old men understand the internet well enough to avoid online scams. I haven't spoken to Ploy since that final meeting. I haven't been back to Thailand. I probably never will. But I dream about Bangkok sometimes. About neon lights and warm nights, and a beautiful woman who made me feel like I mattered. In the dreams, she actually loves me. In the dreams, the business is legitimate. In the dreams, I'm smart enough to see the truth before it destroys me. Then I wake up in San Diego, where the weather is perfect and the women are honest, and I'm just another old man learning to be alone without being lonely. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I earned. And some days, that feels like enough.